Evening and welcome to FMA discussion. This is episode 496, and tonight we have the dynamic duo Joe Lennon and Chad Edward. Well, Chad Edward on Facebook, but really Chad Dulin, right? Is there a difference? I guess we'll find out. At any rate, we're going to find out about their journey. These guys work together a lot and have been, I guess, sounds like for a couple decades. So we're going to see what they do together. They also have a modern East background. So we'll find out what Professor Remy, the impact he's had on both of them. And Joe will be doing some demos, how to be a better bad guy. So I'm looking forward to these two. Yeah. So without further ado, here they are. Hey guys.
Hey,
Joe's evanescent smile is coming through, radiating.
knows no boundaries, man.
I'm so cruel to Joe now. So I'm looking
It's an
forward
easy
to it.
habit to pick up.
I'm telling you, man. If I was by him, man, it would be rough. But yeah. So this should be very fun. I think this is gonna be a fun episode, as well as interesting and informative. So yeah. So both of you guys, all right. So let's just kind of get some background and intro. So what was your guy? All right, FMA background. Let's start with you, Chad. So minor niece was the start.
Yeah, so I was training in Korean arts, living in New Orleans. Met Leon J at a seminar down there, and he kind of steered me towards Remy. And I would just kind of pop up wherever Remy was teaching around the Gulf South and the Mid Atlantic, and just kind of stayed with it. No real specific teacher. I claim Remy as my original instructor. As you know, I now have a position within Tim Hartman's organization. I've also worked very hard to maintain ties with various other of the senior first generation, notably Kelly Warden. And I guess about 96, 97, I moved back to the Mid Atlantic, and that's where I met Joe.
Yes, and all right. So Joe, same journey, modern niece, but it sounds like a different path, maybe different time, different teacher, etc.
Yeah, my original exposure was from my brother. He used to work at a Kempo karate school in Newark, Delaware. And the people that ran that school were the same Jim and Judy Clapp, the people that are on the original Remy Priestess videos back in the day. Tried to take Kempo, didn't care for it. Tai Chi, didn't care for it. I wish I'd stuck with it now, but whatever.
Tai Chi, yeah, when
But
we get older.
yeah, but he came home and he had me. He had an knee stick, and I grabbed it, and he put me in a joint lock, and hurt real bad. And then he did a couple other finger locks and arm bars and all that, all with a stick. And I thought this is pretty cool, man. So I signed up shortly after that and was under Corey Wickersham, and was with him until about 3 years, until I left the school. Started pursuing some other things, but I never stopped training in modern arnis.
So obviously, I've covered modern niece a lot, and you guys have seen that and know that, and it's just amazing. Like, I've always heard about modern niece, but when I really started doing the show, that's when I really started to realize just the profound impact he had on just FMA in the United States, from going to these traditional schools and making this program, whether it was secondary, tertiary, whatever. But just the spreading, and but even more so, just the connection that you feel resonate from folks that have interviewed, that this deep connection they had with him, and
Well,
obviously, you know,
Remy had an amazing gift where he, I'm horrible with names. Remy could meet you once or twice and he'd know your name, he'd know where you were from. He would walk into a room of 80 or 100 people, walk around. He would know out of 100 people, he'd know 95 of their names, even if some of them had only seen him once before. He'd know something about where they were from, and he would make everybody feel like they were the most important person in the room. And that ability, he had a gift not just with making connections in techniques or between systems, but between people. That was truly his
Mm.
gift.
Had to be because for him to resonate and like throughout, the states, Europe. I mean, he had to have the gift, and it had to go just beyond the gift of gab. I mean, he had obviously the innate quality of connecting with people. You know what I mean? To basically to flourish as he did. So Joe, did you actually get to train with him a lot, or was it basically through other folks?
I got to train with him at a couple of big three camps and then a couple of one-offs. So only about 4 or 5 times, probably closer to four. But like Chad was saying, it just something about him was infectious. You know what I mean? You wanted to be good to make him proud.
Yeah, it sounds like he knew how to bring out the best in people, and yeah, I mean, and this is a common theme for everybody had on that he was just that ability to connect, remembering names, making you feel like you were the best thing since sliced bread, just
Well,
and so yeah. And Chad, same way. How many times like you exposed around him a lot via camps, seminars?
yeah, people will try and count up and say, well, I had this many hours with Remy, I had that many hours with Remy.
Yeah.
I I don't know. I can look back. Joe and I were talking about this today, and another one of my longtime mentors in martial arts is Hawk Hockheim. And people, oh, well, when did you start training with Hawk? Well, I didn't start training with Hawk. I started going to Hawk when Hawk was hosting Remy. That's you know, it was that long ago. And the beautiful thing was, back in the day, we didn't have the internet. We had the
Mm.
classified ads in Black Belt magazine, and any given month, Remy was half of those ads or more. And you could look around. Oh, well, he'll be here this weekend. He'll be here that weekend. And my first career was as a graduate student, so I didn't have a whole lot of money, but I had a whole lot of free time. So it's, oh, Remy's going to be in Indiana. Okay, I'll get a couple of my guys and we'll do a road trip. And we'd go spend a weekend with Remy in Indiana. Um, that's, you know, my good friend Brett Salafia. We initially got connected because of Hawk knowing that we were both in New Orleans. And I think I'd known Brett maybe a month before we took a road trip to a 3-day Remy camp in Terre Haute. And at the end of a drive like that, you either are going to be best friends forever or you're never going to speak again.
Or you're gonna end up killing one another.
Well, everybody came home. I think he was ready to kill me at the end of the drive, but
Yeah. That's a name I hear a lot. Actually, I just got in touch with him by somebody else, Brett, and by all accounts, I've heard nothing but good things about him. So yeah. Now, okay, so obviously you both had exposure to him in there, like the impact he has on both of you, like far as well, just impact in general. First part, second part, has that impact made you give you guys better ability to find commonality among things, or the ability to incorporate stuff from other arts in there? So, and I'm hoping I'm making sense with it with this two-part question. Joe?
Yeah, I think the main thing for me that I see a lot is what we would call single Sinawali. It's just like a high strike and a low strike, an angle one and an angle, what is it, eight or nine, something like that.
1 and 9, 2 and 8.
Okay. And I found that in Tai Chi when I got back into Tai Chi a little bit later on. I found it in Western wrestling. But because I had the exposure to Remy, I was able to just say, okay, not only is it this, it's this, and you can do this with it too. I'm really big on arm drags, and that's kind of how that led into it. Was just you figuring out how what I thought it was in Tai Chi was actually in modern arnis, and then I was able to like exploit that a little bit. I'd be able to think more about weapons and stuff like that because it's a weapons based art, and how wave hands like clowns could actually be, a tackle or something like that, or, a knife draw, something along those lines. Easy to connect pieces like that.
So the second part, like, so you're saying like, is it an innate quality of you? Like, okay, you're exposed to another art. Do you immediately start trying to make connections, or I mean, is that something he instilled in you guys?
Yeah, without a doubt, because he would show you emotion and he would start showing you applications and be on, you know this already, you know this already.
Mm.
And of course, one of Remy's closest friend was probably Wally J, who I was also very fortunate to be able to spend a goodly amount of time with. And many, many years ago, after a Big Three seminar, I was driving Wally, and everybody was going to dinner, and I got Wally to the restaurant well ahead of everybody else. So we're sitting out in the lobby, and we're talking. And Wally goes, "Oh, you've been doing a lot with Remy. That's good. It shows." He goes, "Let me show you something." And of course, the highlight of any day is Wally J saying, "Oh, let me show you something." And he proceeded to take the single Sinawali's inward, outward, inward, outward. And he spent about 10 minutes distilling the entire art of judo into that basic stick movement. And I was not a mature enough. I knew I was getting something special, and unfortunately, the field wasn't ready for those seeds to be planted. But even at the superficial understanding I had at the time, it's like, wow.
Mm.
And you go, yeah, both were very, very humble men. And one was, yeah, it's Remy's art. It's already here, but it's already what I do. That's why we can work together so well.
Wow, wow, wow. So in both your experience, was the majority of the curriculum stick based with you guys?
Curriculum for Remy is almost a misnomer because Remy taught almost entirely in a seminar, secondarily in a camp format. And some of the senior students had curriculums they developed, notably Tim Hartman, who I've got a notebook of different modern Ernest curricula he's worked out going back to the 90s. Kelly Warden also has a very comprehensive curriculum. Remy would gauge the crowd. He would have people warm up with a very basic exercise. He'd see where people were and where he wanted to go. So one of the things that modern Ernest does historically lack is the very developed curriculum that you would see in St. Pakiti Tirshi. So you have to distill. You really have to distill the pieces out. So Remy would show you a move, and he'd go, well, there's 5 ways here, and Remy, God love him, the more excited he got, the worse his English would get. And he would, his different students would term techniques different things. So there was a fair amount of confusion into what meant what. That's going to irritate some people, me saying that, I suppose. But it's with Remy, he would give you the pieces, but it was on you to do the homework. It was on you to figure out where it fit into your program.
Okay, that makes sense though. Like if there was, as far as the translation, with his English, I mean, then different interpretations might have came about, and who was doing what in Kansas City might not be doing in Austin, Texas. I mean, right?
Yeah. Well, and even Remy had made empty hand forms a part of the art, and I've heard different stories on it, but the consensus is that the empty hand forms developed when he came to the States because Americans at that time wanted to learn forms, particularly as he was going into karate schools,
That makes
various
sense.
flavors of karate, and that's fine. And the modernities forms are essentially the Pinyon katas reworked with a Filipino filter, and that's not. I'm not saying that to be negative. It's where they are. They're another learning tool, but you would see those forms would be expressed in the light of whatever the core style was for people. In Connecticut, where a number of high-level practitioners, Brian Zielinski and others, heavy American Kempo background, the forms would look like American Kempo forms because that was the basic that was instilled.
Which one makes sense?
In Texas, you might see more of a karate style. I came out of a Korean background, so if I would do those forms at that time, it would look like a modified Taekwondo form. That was also when I was young and flexible and could do the high kicks.
Hmm. Huh.
And
So with that being said, that's interesting. So pen I guess my question is pending, like when it came to grading there, I mean, so would he take into account, oh my God, well, these guys are Kempo, so I gotta remember that I kind of gave them this because they have a Kempo flair versus a Taekwondo. Was he privy to that as he's going all around and
he would look. He wasn't one to break out the protractor. He was looking for, let's say, an expression of the art or your expression of his art.
okay, okay,
Um, so I think he was moving towards a more unified curriculum. I know he was working with Tim on that prior to him getting sick, but unfortunately, when Remy passed away, the American Kempo analogy is I think very valid, very similar to when Grandmaster Parker passed away.
right, right.
Everybody had their piece of the pie, and everyone believed that they had the ultimate piece
They
of the
had
pie.
they had the interpretation, right? And so you mentioned Tim. So is it fair to say Tim has a good comprehensive far as the curriculum, far as organizational structure and et cetera?
Yeah, I think, and of course, there's a bias because Tim and I have been friends since the mid '90s. After Remy's death, I was not originally in Tim's organization I went where Remy had asked me to go, and when that became untenable, Tim had always expressed that I had a home in his organization whenever I chose to come over. But I had been working with Tim prior to that, and Tim always was very focused on developing a coherent curriculum. And again, I have a notebook about so thick of from probably 1998 to present of different evolutions of Tim's thinking on organizing material. And I'll joke, but it's only half joking. I I need Tim in my life because I can't organize material that way. Joe will tell you if you ask me to show the same technique 3 times, you're going to get 3 different things. Um, I think Tim has done a very masterful job of that. I think Hawk Hockheim also has done a very good job of packaging the
Mm,
material for consumption, and I think Kelly Warden has done a very good job.
interesting.
Um,
Interesting.
now, again, fair disclaimer: I I am a member of Tim's organization. Both Kelly and Hawk I consider mentors and more importantly friends. So you can take my views on all 3 men with a grain of salt, but there we are.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Joe, Taylor Lang is saying a handsome guy with the beard.
That's my daughter.
Okay. Well, that's nice that she's jumping in. Well,
Yeah, I sent them all the links tonight, so don't make me look bad. So,
please come watch me. So Joe, I mean, like, um, in regards to what Chad was saying, far as organizational structure in that, like, is that how you got it? I mean, like, or did you get, depending on who you're in front of, a little here, a little there? I mean,
for
different
the most part,
interpretation.
I was just training at the Kempo school that had an Arnis class once or twice a week, and basically what they followed was whatever was on the original set of videos. So we just went through all the katas, we went through all the Sinawalis and all that. And eventually, about 3 years, I got a black belt in it, and yeah, that's kind of it. And the other times when I got a chance to see Professor Priestess, he would add a little something to everything I was doing. Especially fond of the joint locks and stuff like that, and how he could use weapons to do that, and just even the empty hand thing. That was the kind of the big turn on for me.
So depending like what your interest was, he would help complement it in there. I mean, okay.
That's how it worked with me. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Well, we got also another
that's another daughter.
Oh my God, how many you got? How many you got watching it?
All of them, hopefully.
How many daughters you
There's
got?
about 350 Lennons in North Delaware, I think.
There's a
So,
lot.
Joe, how many daughters you have?
4.
Wow, you know what, Joe? You are guaranteed a path to heaven. Seriously, 4
Let's hope
daughters,
so.
you are set, man. You don't have to. Oh my God, we got Brian Canada. Who's that guy? That poor Brian. Brian, we're all pulling for you, man. It sounds like you are just got, man, obliterated. Why is Norman? Oh, here we go. We got Norman. Joe was the Kemple School in Philly on the main line.
No, the Kempo School was in Newark, Delaware.
Newark, Delaware. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Joe's got he's got his PR crew, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
We can't even make fun of him, man. We're gonna get attacked. Yeah, you're in the wasteland. Jeez, man.
Brian, it sure looked like the wasteland this morning. I
I
hope you knew
know,
that,
man. Some of those pictures were pretty scary, huh? But okay. So let's get to when you guys met. So obviously you guys are doing the Modern East tour, bouncing around and getting as much time with the professor with him or through a secondary person. So how did you guys come about as far as meeting?
I was interested in pressure pump, making sure I answer this and he doesn't. Um, I was interested in pressure points at that time. And so I went on George Dulman's website, and Chad had just moved back to the area. So I just said, hey, if you're teaching, I'd like to come over, see if we can get a workout in. The reason I'm answering this question is because whenever Chad's asked, he says, Joe and I met on the internet. And it's just creepy as hell. All right, so I try to jump in wherever I can.
That can't be
I,
construed as creepy. I mean, matter of fact, there's some parallel. We got hit harder than a newcomer at Diddy's party.
Joe, I let you
That
answer the question when it mattered.
Yeah, that's true.
that was pretty freaking man. So internet, Diddy party. I mean,
So after Diddy's party, we just started working out a lot more with the Modern Art East than the pressure point stuff. Kind of lost interest in the pressure point. Unfortunately, Chad was way ahead of me student wise, so he just had plenty of stuff to show me, and that was 100% of our concentration after that.
was my pure modernese. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
We were able to build a really good backyard group, and I guess I'll preface this by saying another one of our friends is a fellow named Bruce Benson. And Bruce is one of those people who, if you ever look at his arm, there's absolutely no taper from the elbow to the wrist. He's not a big guy, but he's brutally, brutally strong. And one day we got finished work, and we worked out on my back deck in the house I was renting. And Joe said, I got a friend named Bruce. Can I bring him next week? Oh, sure. Okay, that sounds fun. So he sticks Bruce on me and goes, hey, can you demo that technique from last week? And it was the first time someone had ever grabbed me, and I really felt like he could break my spine if he wanted to. And it was one of those moments where you say, man, I hope this shit works. And fortunately it did. And our group just started growing from there. And we had a good run, God, for about 10 years before I left the area again. But we had a good core group working out of the house. We had a friend of a friend opened up another Kempo karate school and let us move the group over into the back room there. We're very fortunate that Corey Wickersham, Joe's original instructor, was able to come and join us. And at the same time, Joe opened the door for Sayat Kali for the group of us. And so this would have been right around the time that Remy passed away in late 2001. And one of the things that I think is essential, people say, oh, well, I trained modern Arnis. Well, but in some sense, modern Arnis went in the ground in 2001 when Remy passed. So he did not give anybody all of the pieces. So I think the study of other Filipino arts is essential to unpack the pieces that Remy left behind. And
It's interesting that that's the first time I think I've all the Martinese people I've had on there. I think that's the first time I've heard a statement like that. That pivotal that you train other FMA arts to really unlock your full potential or your what your potential could be in Martinese. Wow.
I mean, you know, again, going through the years, Joe and I have always had a core relationship, but we've also always sort of spontaneously gone in different directions too. And Joe will go find something and bring, hey, I saw this weekend. We gotta work on this. We gotta break
Mm.
this apart. I'll go somewhere else. I'll come, hey, this is what we're gonna do this week. And I've been very fortunate with Bill McGrath and with Jack Latour in Bikini Tirsha. I spend a fair amount of time with Jack, and I'm very open, and I truly appreciate this about Bill is he utterly accepts this. I'm not there to steal anything from Bikini, but I'm there to get a perspective on what my teacher left because my teacher's not here anymore. And Bill and Jack and others in their organization, Scott Falk, Danny Terrell, have been just fantastic about letting me tag along for the ride and pull the pieces out that are what I'm looking for.
It's a great organization. The way he runs it, I mean, yeah, I mean, just from doing the shows here, I mean, yeah. I think that's really profound. I mean, like I've covered, I mean, Mara Niece is, I mean, it's up there as far as episodes, as far as volume with like, it's up there like KI. And I've never heard that. Matter of fact, and I mean, I've interviewed a lot of Marnies practitioners and not one has mentioned that. Like for instance, I think some of the guys are just, and and this is, it's not, and I'm not saying this is bad. In absence of everything else, I guess, at least you're still doing something, but a lot of folks are just recycling what they got. And again, to keep something going, I get it. I want the audience to really understand. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not. And like if you're out in a rural area and you don't have access to anybody else, man, at least you're perpetuating something. But there's folks out there that certainly could do what you're doing. And I think the only other person I can think of in regards to what you just mentioned is I think Chad Bailey. I mean, his what he's doing as far as exploration. I don't know if he's doing it to unravel what you said. I can't speak on that.
Well, again, Chad puts in the work. He he's not shy about exploring other things and bringing it back to his base, and
Mm,
that's part of that is just intellectual honesty. I think. Um,
yeah.
it's if you look at other, say, meta systems, I don't think a person can be really conversant in karate if they've only studied one type. You may have your core system, but perhaps you should look at how some of the other systems do things to really see the divergence. If somebody is a devoted Shirin Ryu practitioner, for example, cross training with someone who's got some skill in Goju is going to make you more rounded, and at least you're going to
Mm,
understand the pieces of the art that you don't train. And
absolutely.
historically, that was a thing, right? If I'm training somebody up in the things that I'm best at, but I know that my buddy up the road has the other side of the coin, if you will. Hey, okay, now you've hit this level with me. Now go spend a couple years training with my buddy. He's going to finish you out. He's going to complete your training for you because I don't have all the pieces.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that definitely was happening back then. I mean, all the trade. I mean, I mean, there's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's been, yeah, absolutely. And it's such a shame now. I mean, and some folks do it. They're, like, myself. I mean, a lot of my students, which I'm very happy for. But there are some that just stayed in their wheelhouse, and but I guess if that what makes them happy, who the hell are any one of us to say what they should or shouldn't do, right?
Well, we've also been very fortunate in initially but I'm going to say our connection with Jeff Berger out of Salem, Massachusetts. Jeff is just an absolute master of the study of human movement across disciplines. And,
mm,
I'm fortunate that he comes down here several times a year he teaches at our big camp. He's one of my partners in that endeavor. He's someone who, he'll come down to teach at my friend's school. Regardless of how he's taking something apart, he's going to make you better. Just phenomenal student of movement.
yeah, and I've never met. I actually did once in New Hampshire. I've heard nothing but great things about him. And um, so, so Joe, I mean, like you guys been a couple decades, obviously, you guys will separate, kind of do your own thing, come back, reunite, and in there. So, what other FMA? You guys mentioned SAOC, so there's a blast from the past. So, whether back then, let's SAOC. That you both were playing around with it.
Yeah, I was at a seminar with Bo Syock, yeah, I guess Chris Syock's dad, somewhere in New Jersey years ago. From
Mm,
there, I started training with Tom Kyer privately for about a year and a half or so. And at that time, a school opened in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, with Sean Gillen. So I started going up there to train with him. I brought Chad along with me. And yeah, we stuck with it for a good while. I changed jobs here and there. It was either I had the time and money, or I would have money and no time. That's just the way it always seemed to work out. So I ended up leaving. Chad stuck with him for a little while. After that, I started going on to Bikini Tertia for a little bit. There was a local guy training that. The reason I did that is because I guess maybe around 95, 90, 94, maybe the Dog Brothers VHS tapes came out.
mm.
Wife got them for me for Christmas. I watched them. I watched about 20 seconds in. I was thinking, I'm going to get the shit kicked out of me. So I went and found one of the schools that Eric Knaus had mentioned about Bikini Tertia and started training with them for a little while. And all that time I've been training in jiu-jitsu with Professor Bill Troy up in Philadelphia and then New Jersey. So yeah, pretty much it. That's kind of the main thing up until Piper. So
So wow, so Sean Gillian, there's a name, and I haven't. Wow, is he still active around? Is he?
Sean is, he moved down to southeastern Maryland.
Okay.
We still chat on the internet a bit.
Yep.
You know, Sean is, Sean's story is not mine to tell, but Sean
Mm,
has overcome a tremendous amount of adversity. Sean has been of late very active in prison ministry, by which I mean he and some of his colleagues will go into the prisons for the weekend and, you know, I don't really care where someone is on the religious spectrum. That's putting your faith where it matters. That's
I was gonna
very
say, man,
impressive.
you're going to the worst of the worst to try to make a change, right? I mean, good on them, right?
And that's, you know, Sean put together quite an amazing group and he's just a phenomenal person to know.
Remember back in the day in the early 2000s when I was with them. I mean, he was, yeah. I mean, he was pretty, obviously lost touch with a good chunk of those guys, but yeah. Andrew is saying has got a question. Joe, was at the school on 896 in Newark?
nah, this was on Polly Drummond Hill Road in Newark.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, but good on Sean if he's doing that, and if he can make an impact. I mean, on anyone, it's big respect. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so what other FMA ventures? So SAOC, you both did SAOC, and anything? Well, Bikini, obviously. Anything other than that?
Oh, thanks. That's it for me. There's three.
Oh, the random seminars and just kind
Yeah,
of
random, like you guys
tricks
are. Yeah,
here and
right.
there.
Yeah. And now, would you guys still consider yourselves active, like Martinese guys? You guys still pushing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think definitely.
I mean, obviously, with you, I mean, you're part of Tim's organization, Chad. So, um, yeah,
I
and
mean,
you as well, Joe.
Yeah, we teach on Wednesday nights at a school in Newark, and some nights I'll come in and we'll just grab the sticks and start going through some stuff. Other nights I concentrate on empty hand and kind of knives right now. So just whoever comes in with a plan for the night, they get to teach, and we just kind of roll like that. And a lot of the jujitsu I've done over the years is very, very similar to the empty hand version of modern arnis. So it just
Mm.
fits in really, really well with it. So the small circle jiu-jitsu was a big influence on what I've done. So
and Joe is very humbly understating his jujitsu skills. Professor Bill Troy, I think, is if I wanted to learn stand up grappling from the go in the Mid Atlantic, Bill Troy is the man I would seek out. Phenomenal instructor, and Joe is really a credit to him. I've had the good fortune to be able to train with Bill a little bit, but Bill Troy's tutelage has really been sort of the anchor in Joe's training even before we met, and he's a credit to what Bill has done. He's a credit to Small Circle, and he's a credit to Custodial Jiu Jitsu.
thank you.
And I'll joke that I use Filipino martial arts as a vehicle to teach certain things, but Joe absolutely uses FMA to trick people into learning jiu-jitsu, and he uses jiu-jitsu to trick people into learning FMA. He's brilliant at it.
Wow, wow. And so with that, so you guys obviously are still in concert together, and so you guys do Wednesday nights together and some Sundays, correct?
Wednesday nights is kind of a shared endeavor. I do a Tuesday night class for a friend Rob Kloss at his school, and then the Sunday sessions that's Joe taking the deep dive into Piper, and I'm along for the ride on that one. That's my time to just be a student and hang out.
Sometimes that's like the best time.
Yeah.
No responsibility. You just right. And what are you teaching during the week, Joe?
During the week, it's just a combination of the jiu-jitsu stuff that I do. It's primarily something called Custodi Jiu-Jitsu. Dave Custodi was a guy out of Boston that had his own thing. My professor, Bill Troy, is one of his top students. Bill developed something he calls PJC systems, which is kind of a hodgepodge of some of the stuff that we've done, mainly Custodi Jiu-Jitsu, but we've added like long gun and a lot of knife stuff, a lot of ground stuff that they didn't generally cover, a lot of boxing. Um, and that's pretty much that covers it's all self-defense basically. I'm very
Mhm.
self-defense oriented. That's always been my mindset ever since I started training. I don't care about winning tournaments and stuff like that. I love that stuff. It's fantastic, but I just always wanted to know what to do if someone was threatening me or a loved one.
Yeah,
So,
with four daughters, I mean, yeah,
yeah.
I could see that being on the top of your agenda. You know what I mean? No, I mean for good reason, though. I mean, yeah, I mean, like you
Mhm.
obviously want them to be able to take care of themselves, right?
Sure.
Um, so edged weapons. So Joe, you got in these prison systems. I mean, I mean, like, are you a part of a cult? Are you a cult guy? Like, what are
I
you
am.
doing getting part of
Yeah.
these systems?
It's
Like this
called
Medusa system, this Piper system. I mean, like, why on earth would you be doing these systems?
the cult is called Franco. Okay, that's and we all worship, at the altar of Dean. Um, I had Chad was looking for volunteers for a friend of his group called Sheepdog Combatives, and he asked us if we wanted to go down and do some, basically be a professional dummy, all right, or a professional target. So I
Meat
went
puppet, I think, is the term we
neat,
use.
yeah. So I went down there and I got shot at with a lot of simunitions. While I was there, they asked me to teach a little bit of ground stuff and a little bit of knife stuff, which I did. And I guess people liked it because they asked us to come back. Well, when we got back from that, shortly after that, I got laid off during COVID, and I was still getting paid though. So I figured, well, I'm going to come out of COVID a little better than when I went into it, either through a martial art thing or some other endeavor I had going on. I met Lloyd DeJong from a Burt Richardson video,
Who's
and
that guy?
he pops up once in a while. Every 10 years or so, he comes on and gives a lesson. But he accepted me as a student, and I told him, I'm working a little bit with a group that trains police. I am not a police trainer by any stretch of the imagination, but I assist the guys that do. So I just figured, well, with the Piper, if I just figure out maybe why bad guys do what they do with a weapon, maybe I could kind of turn that into something that would be beneficial to the police officers that I knew. So I started training with him. Lloyd left, started training with you. You turned me on to Medusa as well, and just been training ever since. I love it. It's a lot of fun, and you get some really interesting ways to use the weapons that I'd never seen before in any martial arts, any of them.
What I want to really convey here is a philosophical aspect here. And unfortunately, these systems get a bad name because if you're doing them, I mean, like you're just this, you're whacked, you want to be part of something, something didn't get fulfilled in your teenage years, and, you're need to be associated with this group. And it's so far removed from that. If you would look at the folks that are in Medusa, for instance, like there are some incredible martial arts there, and none of them are cult-like. They don't need to be part of Medusa. They were versed and well accomplished way before they got in Medusa. And if you look at WPM, it's the same thing. It's like the folks were accomplished martial artists before they came into these groups. The majority of them, I'm sure there's a few that weren't, but a good chunk of them were. And so I think there's a lot of I think erroneous conclusions floating out there. And one of the things being with Lloyd, I made a really concerted effort to change the lens on Piper. And yes, I definitely used FMA discussion as a vehicle for that. Guilty. And I think I succeeded in that. And I'm doing the same thing with Medusa. It's like, they're really kind of, I know reverse engineer sometimes the phrase gets overused, but really we're looking at, yes, we look at the absolute terror and the horrific nature of these systems and their element, absolutely. But we really do draw, how can we from a legally defensible aspect, how can we use the stuff to distract for self-defense and diminishment and the transference to other weapons and stuff. Are you, I know, Chad, you're just jumping on with Joe, but what's your guy? You got, am I off my rocker when I say this stuff? What do you guys think?
No, so I think two points of departure from that. First, I think there's a lot that you've done with the Western Piper. Hey, Dave. Particularly translating the shimmer to the flashlight.
Eric, I kid.
That's okay. That's fundamental FMA mindset, right? We're taking the tool that we can use where we are and making it work for us. I think the other thing that really comes through is there's a reluctance on the part of so many people, and particularly, and I say this as someone with 28 years thereabouts in law enforcement, and an awful lot of that as a trainer in some capacity or other. There's a reluctance on the part of cops to study bad guys, to study prison-based systems. And that goes broader. That goes into, as much as I hate the term, into the self-defense training realm, because people are more interested in LARPing than they are in training. So, we're gonna start with this attack. Okay, well, why are we gonna start with that attack? Classic example, karate 1 steps, where I'm gonna go into a down block posture, and do this long lunging punch from way out. And then when you start doing knife, you do the same thing, but it's the long lunging stab from way out. Now, there's a why for that. It allows a new student to actually start to see physical cues. It gives enough reaction time to have some success. But then that's where everybody stops. And it's like, no, that's just the beginning. You need to look at how people who visit violence on other people actually do it. And there's a reluctance to do so. That, well, I'm not going to learn from some criminal. Well,
Yeah,
who do you think you're going to have to deal with?
Yeah.
And
No, I agree with you. You know, and Joe, and I'm going to get Joe's lens on this because I know Joe will support this because we've had many talks about this. When I look at these systems, two things came to my mind, and this is why I wanted them under the umbrella of Blade Tech, where we look at this comprehensive look at edge weapons, but in being inclusive, these prison systems. One, the whole thing on, generally speaking, with systems, the whole aspect of pre-violence, I don't think is looked at deeply enough. And the whole creating good habits, not letting anybody get close to you that you don't freaking know. You know what I mean? Like that those two areas, to me, prison systems, they really bring to light those things. You know what I mean? Like in there. And Joe, I'll let you go ahead with it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it was Mike and Seth and Jason in the book said something along that the people that are practicing like the reality attacks are the guys in prison. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing a bit.
Seth doesn't know what he's talking about, though. No, I'm
Oh,
just kidding. I wouldn't say that if he was in front of me.
You got to read through it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, they're practicing now. When they get out, they're going to have to defend themselves against maybe somebody they had beef with in prison, or they just want something you got, and they'll use whatever means necessary to come get it. That'll be a lot of stuff that they had practiced in jail. So yeah, I think it's well worth everybody studying that if you're interested in martial arts. And like you and I said, we can steal stuff from that for the self-defense systems, and in particular, women's self-defense systems, because women's self-defense, in my opinion, has to have weapons.
You're absolutely right, but also the realistic nature of attacks. You know what I mean? Like, I love dueling sparring. I really do. It's one of my favorite activities. I love it, especially with knife. I really do, because of the attributes, the awareness,
it's awesome, but at some level, it's LARPing.
Yeah,
and that's okay. I love it too. But
but all the videos I've seen of attacks, I'm not seeing this Zorro. I'm seeing, I mean, these gross motor. I mean, just and so I think there's a good chunk of our community that it's got blinders on. And I don't want to sit here and say why, because I think it could be attributed to a bunch of reasons, and I don't want the community to get upset with me. I'm actually trying to invoke upon them, like, you really should be looking at if you teach knife, you really should be looking at these systems. If you teach knife defense, empty hand knife, or just knife defense, period. I think you owe it to yourself and your student base to look at these systems, you know what I mean? And just the behavior, how they gain proximity, what are their tricks and stuff,
Even backing off from the blade, just going to the baton as an impact tool, as a law enforcement impact tool. And Joe will remember when Joe and I first met, I was in my first police academy. And when I got off field training, I went to work in an area that was, we say, not the best. So there were some use of force incidents. And anybody who was training with me would get, oh, did you use the baton? Did you use the baton? Yeah, I did. Oh, well, what cool move did you do? I did angle one once. I did angle one a second time, and then he wasn't there to hit anymore. So then I put handcuffs on. And Mark Denny calls it a caveman for good reason, but well, why didn't you do this? Because there was no need. That level of complexity isn't there unless you're facing someone else who's got similar background.
Yeah. What say you, Joe?
Just completely agree. It's the attacks are one of the things you should be focused as a teacher, especially. You want to be the worst thing that your student faces. So I'd want to go in there and not amped up, but under control, but really give them something to think about. Not just, okay, here comes angle one, I'm poking towards your stomach or something like that, and they do a technique that'll work in slow motion when they know exactly where it's coming, and they can stop and start over, and there's no fear
Mm,
of actually getting hurt. Where if you're doing Piper and you're hummingbird, you're moving the knife around a little bit, and suddenly instead of going down for the kidney, or for the liver, you're all the way on the backside getting the kidney. That scares the hell out of you, and that's kind of how I want them to face a knife attack. Get away from there as far as you can,
yeah,
or start training.
And this is a
yeah,
strong segue into Joe has spent more time cultivating the ability to be a good law enforcement trainer than most law enforcement trainers I know.
mm. I
Joe
would
and
say, man, yeah.
Joe and one of our students, Kathy, took it upon themselves to go through the Citizens Police Academy at my old agency earlier this year. That's no small commitment of time and resources.
Mm,
Joe has spent a lot of time figuring out how to stage assaults without pre-assault indicators, and it's
I
it's been an
know. He's something.
interesting
I know.
interesting evolution to watch.
I love it,
And
and we're gonna be showing some of that stuff for sure. I mean, I think it's how to be a better bad guy. I mean, yeah, I think his stuff is fantastic. When I saw it, I'm like, man, you got to show this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I understand the apprehension, of not wanting everybody to see it, and yeah,
but
but
it's also one of those things. Joe can show something. That doesn't mean somebody's going to be able to do
be
it the
able to
first
do it,
time.
like, I mean, like there are times
You
I'm like,
know,
holy crap, man, I
it's
just didn't see
well,
that.
he's in one sense he's doing stage magic, which he's also studied to be able to make this work. But
Mm,
it's also I've seen some of the stuff he'll show you tonight. I've seen him work. He's been perfecting this stuff for years, and
yeah,
that's a commitment to the craft, right?
I think it's fan. Yeah, I love it. We're gonna get into that soon. So, Joe, like, how for your student base, and Chad, you can jump in as well. Like, are they appreciating what you're kind of sharing from the Piper Medusa lens, the
Uh,
realism, and how
yeah,
everybody got close, and why, and et cetera, et cetera?
absolutely. There's a lot of times I show up to class and I don't have a set curriculum, anything like that. If Chad's not in that night or something, I'll just ask them, "What do you want to do?" Knife, first thing out of their mouth, knife, moving knife, that kind of stuff. Something that scares them, something that they're not used to, something that they may encounter in the street. Or the school we teach at is on the University of Delaware campus, so we get some younger folks in there, and there's been some trouble down there recently, people getting attacked, that kind of thing. So we'll get people in like that, and they're looking for an advantage. Once they see like what a scary attack can look like, we usually never see them again.
It's
But
frightening.
the ones yeah, the ones that stick with me are the ones that are going to benefit the most because they'll have the adrenaline dumps. They'll know not to take anything for granted. Just because an attack's coming this way doesn't mean it's going to land there. It could hit any other
Yeah,
part of the body just from a quick shift. So
it's
keeping
frightening,
them on their
right?
toes,
Frightening.
basically.
I'm sorry. What's that? 7:30. Yeah. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I mean, frightening. But you're doing you're doing them a service. I mean, at least you're making them aware. Like potentially what's out there, right? And I think that's all we can
Oh,
do. You know what I mean? And yeah. But speaking of
yeah.
that,
What
how
I
to be
tell
a
them all,
yeah,
I tell
yeah,
all of them, I said, I can't show you one technique that's going to work against every person on earth 100% of the time.
I know.
That's life.
Yeah, hence is why going back to this whole thing on the pre-violence, and I mean, like, we've had this discussion before, Joe, like on the whole thing versus ambush. Like, I mean, what would you do? I mean, come on, we're not superheroes. I mean, somebody jumps out of a bush and gets me to crowd. Well, I guess I'm dying that day. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But within reason, you know, again, you know, that whole pre-violence thing and not going far beyond like be aware of your surroundings. I mean, but no, just not letting folks get close to you that you don't know, and you know what I mean? And
Right.
you know,
Well, and that's the throwaway in the law enforcement world, right? The guys who don't want to train, oh, I'd never let anybody get that close. Well, you
I
can't do a field
know.
interview from 10 yards away. You
Yeah.
get that close to people every day.
Yeah, right. And that whole thing, or like, well, I'll just pull my firearm out. And these guys have never done any, you know, any drawing under pressure. It's there's that whole. I'm a Seth, you are a superhero. You just happen to be a large one. All right. But
Well,
have
and
you? What's that?
it's instructive, you know. Fortunately, I do have the opportunity to put people under stress and see if they can get a weapon out, see if they can get shots off. And it's the trick is doing it in such a way that their spirit isn't broken and they give up on it. You've got to, it's the same as anything else. It's baby steps to get the skill set up.
And just increments of right and resistance. And yeah, you of all people would, you know, I mean, you've seen it. So, folks, here's a video I'm going to play. And then these guys are actually going to do some demos. So, check this out. All right, here we go. And this is stuff that Joe does, folks. I love it. I just think it's great. But he really explores basically how potentially a bad guy could get the upper hand on you in like a traffic stop, for instance. So check this out here.
The gun in the jacket here in the holster. Can you see the gun, Carson? Okay. Go ahead, Bobby.
How you doing, sir?
What do you want?
Hi, I'm Corporal Carrasco, Newport PD.
Don't give a shit.
The reason I pulled you over, you were speeding. You see your license registration is short. Can you provide those documents for me, please?
It's right here. Okay.
Love that. Love it. Love it. So, guys, basically what these guys are going to be doing is kind of similar to what the video was there, except it obviously won't be in a vehicle. But Joe's going to show some of his tricks and how, how sometimes, you know, how well the weapon can be hidden. So, Joe, you let me know if you're ready. I'm going to minimize myself.
Okay.
There we go, where I can still hear and see you, but you're going to have a bigger lens there.
I'm going to tilt you up just a little bit,
Yeah.
Joe.
Well, this is the one I did in the video. Okay, this didn't have the bottle in front of me right now. One of the things I like doing is I don't want to have anything fancy, nothing that I need gadgets for. I want something that's readily available on hand. So if I'm just approaching someone like, hey man, can you help me out here? Can you lend me some money or something like that? Ideally, nobody there sees the gun that's right behind the bottle, because we'll get there, you know, that quick. Where's the camera? There it is. And all it's doing is just sitting there. I'm actually using the bottle to help hold it in and blind it a little bit. There's no holster or anything, but it's going to serve as a distraction. So if you're coming up, you know, it's there without me having to pull up anything or get anything out of the way. So jump in there for a second, please.
Yeah. So if anybody has seen the video of some of the Sparrow hitmen from the Philippines, very quick stealth draws like that. If you haven't, Google it. It'll come up. It'll show you. Honestly, now that I think about it, Joe's the first person I've ever seen put those concepts really to use. So he's going to show you something else here.
Yeah, I think I've shown this one before on some of the Western Piper methods. This is just a, hey, buddy, look, I don't got any problems. Just please help me out here if you can. All I need is just a little bit of change or something like that. I'm going to use that to get close to Chad. Get in here. All right. And ideally, you know, he sees nothing. He already knows what's coming, so he's going to take that with a grain of salt. But if I get this close, he's mine at this point.
His hands are up. My hands are down.
Yeah.
My reaction is not going to beat his action.
So I'm just going to come in there real quick and attack him. Okay, so real simple. It's just in the cuff of the sleeve. If I have it up like this, nobody there should see anything. You know, even if I turn my hands a little bit, ideally you don't see the knife. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do what we call in Piper a major twirl. Okay, this hand's coming forward, this hand's coming up over top, and I'm going to attack with the knife. Same thing can be done without the jacket on now. Okay. It's the exact same setup. Right, hey, I don't want any problem. Ideally, nobody sees a knife. I'm going to be getting this closer. Officer, look, you know, I saw everything down there. Okay, this guy was harassing this woman, and you know, come up and then just attack. So that's one of the things I like doing. Some of the other stuff is using something that everybody has on them at all times, just a cell phone. Okay, well, this will be the last one. So ideally, if I come up, it's kind of the same deal. Like, look, officer, look, you know, right down here. You know, I got the license plate of the guy that was doing everything. Okay, and there's the gun right there. Just very, very simple things that can cause a distraction. You can use them as a distraction that most people probably wouldn't think twice about, because everybody walks around on their phone all day, and you can use that to your advantage if you're a piece of garbage criminal. You know? I mean, that's all I'm going to show you.
That was awesome. I mean, I love that stuff. And matter of fact, I showed the whole thing when you did your test. I showed Jason it, and he loved it. When you did the shock latch. Well, in this case, it was a strike because you were using a different weapon.
Oh,
but you
that's right.
slid right off the phone. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, that was. Could you imagine like taking like the Medusa outlook, like you're hiding that, hey, you know, I'm just, and then, I mean, it's like they're done, because here's the thing, you're reverse, like, okay, we're using this like as a kind of optics, like, hey, you know, I don't want you like there from a, like, you know, from a defense so we can back out and get out of there, get home, right? But you're approaching with that. I mean, so the average layman is going to be like, man, he was here, he wasn't threatening, and then
Yeah, then there's a knife in your throat. So,
and it's over and done. And it's, if you watch what he's doing, is it's not that his verbiage is not that different from how homeless will approach people.
yeah,
And it's all the forced teaming, it's the minimizing of threat, it's talking your way inside that bubble. It's something that people really need to be aware of. And even if you want to put it in Medusa terms, the shock, it wasn't a physical shock, but when Joe's latch and stab were simultaneous, I don't know how well the camera caught it, but the tip of the knife was literally right at the base of my Adam's
no, the
apple.
reactionary gap, something like that.
The shock is, it doesn't need to be physical, right? It's like he's here, he's, oh shit. And the psychological stop is the same.
Yeah. Hence, man, don't let anybody get freaking close to you today.
Yeah, distance options, right?
It's just like, and it's so hard because we're social creatures, right? We want to help, we want to be helpful in that, but it's like a re-engineering up here. And I've been guilty in the past, man. I've let people get close that probably, you know, that I probably shouldn't have, right? You know, but you know, when I go places now, I really think about that. Like, hey, if there's somebody, you don't know, man, just don't. Like, I'm really like playing this out in my head just because of the crazy stuff you're seeing today, the unraveling in society, right? You know,
Yep.
It's just like, man, I can't wait for the next year's camp there, and I guess because were you gonna be showing some of that stuff? That's good.
Well, now I got to come up with a bunch of new ones because.
Yeah, oh no, you got plenty that you didn't show tonight. You got a ton more stuff.
There's a lot of material there.
Yeah. Like, hey, here's a question for both of you. Like the cops at, okay, Sheepdog, when you get to that vent, like, are they appreciating this stuff? Are they, I mean, what do they think?
Yeah, it's, if you get officers who are willing to voluntarily go into an edged weapon survival course or a street survival course, unfortunately, those are the officers who need it the least. It's kind of like if you go to an advanced shooting course, you have two groups of people there. You have people who their basics suck and they don't belong in that course either, but the instructor's taking their money, or you have
Yeah.
people who are there with great humility trying to get better. And the one thing that I always counsel Joe on is you can't have a scenario that's a complete gotcha. Everything has to be winnable, but that doesn't mean everybody has to win. There just has to be a way that they could have won. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, right. Everybody it can't be like you said. Everybody can't win. Joe, when can
There's
You got it,
Norman get
Norman.
Norman get in line? Just kidding. I told you, Joe, man, you had something special there. I'm telling you, man. There's some like,
Thank you.
man, just from
Well,
like, I mean, think about it. Like, you look at Piper and Medusa already taking people out. It's terrible, horrific. But then now you add your stuff, like it's like
all
on
right. Can I do a
steroids.
quick shameless commercial plug here?
Sure.
All right. So if people want to see some more Joe or get to meet Jeff Berger or see some of the other stuff we do a 2.5, 3 day camp the last weekend of June every year. The bulk of the camp is in Hockessin, Delaware. Very local to Philadelphia, reasonably local to Baltimore, easily accessible on the East Coast. Primarily a charity event. The instructors aren't paid. Everybody just comes up. It's a bonding event. It's sharing ideas. It's a golden opportunity. This will be our 5th year doing it, and we'd love to get some more bodies here.
Oh my gosh, I would love to go to that. Yeah. You know, Joe will have to be my partner the whole time. Okay. No, just kidding.
I'm going to warn you. Joe is an awesome partner, but bring your towel.
I sweat a lot.
It's okay. Joe was so helpful though what we did there in Maryland.
That was a
Man,
good time.
that was a good time, Joe. It was. It was a nice bonding time with you, Joe.
All right, I thought Chad was the creepiest one if we met on the internet, but you're in a close second now.
I wasn't even going to tell that story tonight. You told me.
I said it before you did. That's what happened.
So, all right. Hey, what's future goals for you guys? So, like individually speaking, class speaking, system, whatever. What are some of your goals? What you guys got? Maybe future tents cooking.
Good.
Well, once I'm retired, which I'm about 17 months out, one of the goals, and fortunately my lovely wife is very supportive of this. We want to, we live in what a friend of mine calls the other Maryland, so we're out in farm country. So we're going to add a good size outbuilding and actually try to be able to do some more consistent classes, but also if people want to come in and learn specific things, we'll have a venue for them. We'll have a place where people can sleep. So do a little bit more of that.
That sounds awesome. Wow, we got a comment here, Joe. Before you go, I'm getting jealous.
That's my wife.
Oh my gosh, you got your daughter's here, you got her here, and
yeah.
His wife's a saint. She's been putting up with him hanging out with me forever.
There's many times where I'll wake one of them up and like, hey, get the camera, come on in here. Can you see the knife? Can you see it? They're like, no, Dad, I can't see the knife. No, honey.
Oh my
God. They're super supportive of everything.
That's
they put up with all
man.
my brain ideas. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do anything without her and the kids.
No, that's right.
My future goals are just to keep getting better at Piper. I'm hoping to get level 2 sometime within the next couple of weeks, and then get level 3, and then see what happens. Then I want to do some more blade tech. I'm introducing a lot more Medusa to the Sunday class because at least half of the class there is women. And like we discussed before, like I really want to emphasize that, in my opinion, and I know you share this, women's self-defense, especially nowadays, is going to involve a weapon, some kind of
weaponized. 100.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be a gun, doesn't have to be a knife, but I always carry the Kelly Warden travel wrench. That's my favorite, and a flashlight. and just doing something as simple as orbits, whacking somebody in the head repeatedly and getting out of there. And something I tell all my students, but kind of especially the women, your goal in a self-defense situation is not to be the ultimate fighting champion. You want to do as much damage so that you don't have to take any and go home.
At home.
That's the main thing with us.
Get
Just
home.
make sure you get home.
Yeah, no, well said. I mean, and yeah, you're going to definitely be level 2 very, very, very soon. You're going to have a nice setup there. I mean, you're a Medusa instructor. I mean, level 2, you're going to have, when you graduate level 2, I mean, you pretty much got the bulk system. You got the heart of the system. You know what I mean? You're going to be in good shape. And then, you already got some blade tech. So you're going to be, yeah, you'll be in good shape. They're lucky to have you, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing to throw in is that we always try in the Sunday blade classes to get at least 15 or 20 minutes of emergency medical training in as well.
That's awesome. That's something I need to, yeah, that's fantastic. You guys cover that as well. Yeah, that's important, right? I mean, well, we got some, Brent, agree. My wife carries a blade gun and a stun gun. Are you sure she's covered there? Does she need a backup to the backup to the backup? And we got Jaime. Who's that guy? Some guy in
Jaime.
Texas. Some guy in
That's a
Texas.
bad man.
I think likes the Cowboys or something like that. America's team. Awesome, man. This has been a pleasure. I knew this was gonna be fun, so I'm so glad you guys came on and did this. Yeah.
Well,
So.
I appreciate you delaying a few days with our
Oh no, happy to. You
emergency
know what it
here.
was? I could have just did Joe, and which it would have been perfect. But I think there would have been a nice. I knew there would be a nice energy with you too. So yeah, no worries.
Yeah, it was the right thing to do. I'm not that entertaining, so I'm glad somebody else was answering questions.
No, I would have made you. I would just made you more entertaining. That's all. You know what I mean? But awesome, you guys. Well, hey, hope to see you guys sometime in the near future. It looks like I don't know. We gotta get more events going so we see each other more frequently. I mean that would take care of that, right? So, what do you guys got? Well, speaking of that, you guys, what events you guys got? Any events coming up? Going?
All right, so I'm headed up to Buffalo Thursday night for
Oh,
Tim
with that
Daniel
Hartman
instructor
guy?
camp.
Oh,
Yep. Then
Hartman.
the following Columbus Day weekend, road tripping up to Salem for Jeff Berger's annual Columbus Day camp with a group of my students.
I'm sorry. When's that again?
Salem, Massachusetts.
I know, but I'm sorry. What dates?
Columbus Day weekend. So I'm going to have people up there Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And that's Columbus Day weekend. I'm gonna have to look that up. Oh, okay.
Let me open a calendar up and I'll tell you. 11th, 12th, 13th of October.
11th, 12th October. Okay.
And then the 19th of October in Northern Virginia, Metro DC, Ty Botting is holding his annual fall thing, which is a kind of roundtable FMA related arts event. Get together in a park. We see how many people we have. We split the time up. Everybody shares something, and we have a barbecue.
I hear that's also very, very fun. For nothing but good things about that event as well.
Virginia police, maybe.
We'll see if the world's not burning.
We're supposed to go teach at the Virginia Police Academy, but it's like 2 or 3 days after the election, so we're pretty sure it might not be. Might be kind of busy for law enforcement, so we probably won't have as many people signing up for class.
Depending which way it goes, right?
I don't think it matters which way it goes.
Yeah, that's true. It could be true. Yeah. Yeah, interesting times for sure. Yeah. But awesome. Well, all right. You guys seem that's as far as you guys being busy. I'm trying to think. I'm looking just at the dates. Columbus Day weekend, and then there's ties. I mean, I'm trying to think if I could potentially facilitate going to one of those. Well, I gotta check it out. But anyway, well, hey, pleasure is all with you guys. And Joe, we should probably try to catch up next week before Thursday, if possible. Friday, I'm heading out to LA.
Oh, okay.
If feasible.
All right, I'll text you.
Yeah, if feasible, right? And Chad, always a pleasure, and thank you.
Yeah, we'll touch base sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I really appreciate it. This was fun, and you guys take care of yourselves. We'll be in touch.
All right,
Thanks a
thank you,
lot.
sir. Really appreciate it.
All right, take
Good
care.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
All right, that wraps up 496. Who is next? Who is next? I want to get Maya back on. She got the other book, so I have to touch base with her. Tom Sotis is coming back on. He is elected. He would really much wants to do number 500 episode. So when we get to 500, he will be doing that. So Tom Sotis, Maya, and a few other folks that are not present here on my list, but certainly we be getting on there. And as always, we're always taking suggestions. So yeah, everything as always will be posted. MMA discussion on the featured section. You can see what's coming up. But anyway, thank you for those who watched, jumped in, commented, and everything. This was a fun show. Yeah, which I kind of knew it would be. And Joe, man, that guy's got so much tricks up his sleeve. It's just awesome stuff. But all right, guys, I don't know. Could be an episode next week, but again, you'll see it posted. All right, guys, but thanks for jumping in, and we'll see you next time.